you need a lot of perseverance. And I define success as refusing to fail. Many times that's what it is. Simple idea. 2% of students manage to get into a good college like RVC or ES. 98% of them won't. Can we use technology to bridge that gap? Can we take the best teacher to the last student? That was the thought. But once you reach a certain scale, the only way is to get people who are better, who know. You need different people for a 0 to 1 or a 1 to 10 and for a 10 to 100 journey. If you are sure about the insight that you have on your customer and or on your industry, stick with it for at least a few years.
Awesome. First of all, big round of applause for Srikanth. He's, graciously accepted to obviously talk about his experiences. I think, when I try to introduce Srikanth, it's very difficult because he became a founder when some of you were probably not even born. And he has been sort of a founder and an entrepreneur and a role model entrepreneur of that in terms of what it takes over the last 30 plus years, right? So thank you, first of all, Srikanth. I think it's, I've obviously known Srikanth as a founder for a long enough time now to host him on the other side and try to get into his brain on how he operates, how he finds his drive. I think it's great. Both of us are, I think, brand builders in a way that we actually wear our own brands. So he's also wearing a Homelane shirt. So Srikanth, I think my first question to you is, what does it take to be a 30-year founder? I mean, in terms of what has it taken you? And you probably are someone, I have a rapid fire question which I'll ask you right now, which is, if you were not a founder, what would you have been, or what would you be even from today in the next 15, 20 years? And do you see a time where you're not a founder?
So interestingly, most probably if I had not been a founder, I would probably been working in all these public sector acts. The reason for that, I tell you, is simple. I used to play table tennis when I was a kid. That's a really long time ago, by the way, the 80s. And I played for Karnataka. I was a serious table tennis player. So if anybody here plays ping pong, I'm sure I'm willing to take you up. I haven't played in 10 years now, but still, it's okay. So I used to play seriously, and I was doing my engineering, and the alternative was I was not doing very well. My first and second year was so to speak. So options were, my dad said, hey, you know what? You play TT well, you want to play TT, you know what? Just do that and you'll probably get into, some public sector bank or something similar, railways or something like that. So that probably would have been my alternative. Thank God I didn't choose that. I stopped playing and studied a little bit better, and then started.
So what does it take for you to be a 30-year founder? And, what are those one or two things that has made you stay on for the course? And would you continue this forever?
I probably will, because I think, first of all, let me answer the first part of your question. I think it takes, according to me, definitely a little bit of living on the edge all the time. It takes a little bit of madness or blind belief or blind faith, whatever you want to call it. It takes a lot of perseverance. I can tell you many instances, I'm sure we'll talk about some of them, on near-death experiences, so to speak, of all the startups that I've been part of. So, all. This is my 31st year, and I can tell you every 4 to 5 years has been at least one near-death experience for my startup, at least, if not more often. So you need a lot of perseverance, and I define success as refusing to fail. Many times that's what it is, because every other person near you has given up. Actually, most people, many times. But, if you are the only one standing and you still think that there is something that can happen here, and you stand long enough, then you will win. I think those are some of the things that I've seen. I think perseverance is a very under this one, but I think it's extremely, extremely important.
So I'm going to get into that, a bunch of things that you've given us to unpack over the course of the next 30 minutes. I think the first, I'm going to really try to touch upon your previous two sort of entrepreneurial stints. 1993, 90 days in Wipro, you realize that you have to be a founder and start off this business, Total Solutions, it's called. assembling computers. And what prompted you to do that? And how did you stay that course for, I don't know, maybe almost a decade, 7 years?
Yeah. So it was very opportunistic, very short-sighted. So now I thank myself for it. But at that point in time, I was, by the way, I tell you the story on how I got into Wipro. I was definitely not top of the class at RVC. I studied at RVC, computer science. But I had a couple of batchmates of mine who were definitely more intelligent. And they wanted to apply to Wipro. And we were 4 people needed to write the entrance exam. Otherwise, they were not conducting it. So they had 3 of them, and I was asked to fill in I had no interest. And as luck would have it, I was the only one who got it. The guy who interviewed me again was a big table tennis enthusiast. So I got in again, like my wife keeps calling it sports quota. So be it. So that's how I got into Wipro. And in 3 months I quit. Why did I quit? They were paying me 4,500 rupees. That was my first salary. When I got this one, it was still about 2 to 3 times what my cohort was getting at that point in time, wherever they were. They were in different places. And so I was supposed to have been satisfied and happy, which I was not. My dad was a small-scale industrialist, so I'm kind of that way second generation entrepreneur. So I had seen him kind of build his own small business. Very different thoughts, though. I probably talk about that a little later. But having said that, I had seen him do a decent job of running his own. So I had seen some success in my own eyes, so to speak. So these guys were paying me 4,500. One day I was going out to lunch, and there's this largish gentleman who came out of the lift. And then we said, hey, do you know how I can go to Wipro Infotech? And he had come to Wipro Systems. I was working in Wipro Systems. So I said, no, this is a wrong building. I'll show you the building. It was close by. So I walked down with him. I said, hey, how come you're here? He said, he was wanting to buy computers. So I said, oh, he said, how much is one computer, etc. So it was about 45,000 rupees. And I had a college mate of mine who was very, very good at assembling computers. Those who don't probably know this, maybe too young for it, but at some point in time, laptops were not yet very useful. It was all desktops, and it was all assembled because the price difference was a lot between the two. So it was about 45,000. I had a good friend of mine who had run assembling and selling computers in Mumbai. So his name is Sheldon. So I asked Sheldon, hey, and how much would something like this cost? This guy come, he wants to buy some 10 computers or something like that. He said, what? 45,000? Just too expensive. This should be costing something like half. I said, are you sure? I mean, can you just double click? So did the math. There was a clear 10,000 rupees at least there. And this was at first sweep. I said, yeah, 4,500 they pay me. And 10,000 per computer. Usually if I get like one computer, I'm okay, I should be able to do better. And long story short, that gentleman's name was Amar Rahman. He was my first customer. And I sold him those 10 computers, by the way, for slightly lesser margin, but still made at least 20 times what Wipro would have paid me in the next 3 months or so. And that was the first business.
Lesson here, please find your first customer before you leave your job. I think and through that, and I've seen one of your interviews, I think, where you said, obviously, as the margins over time started reducing, and then you realized that, you had to do something else. Was the whole concept of EduRite right there, or what was sort of that transition from Total Solutions to EduRite?
Actually, by about 88 or so, I started feeling that, this 5,000 rupees per computer that I was making came down to $500. And the business was a very credit-heavy business. You get credit, you give credit. So it's a little bit of a risk both ways. And it's mostly was in cash. So that was third complication. So I said, you know what, this is not good for my health. It's long term. So I might as well get on it. So around 98 or so, I shifted the business slowly towards more services. So it was more maintenance, it was more services, etc. And made it lesser of selling so that the risk became lesser. And then in 2000, I decided that EduRite happened. EduRite actually was an idea which was not mine. It was my co-founder, Jawahar Doraiswamy. I don't know how many of you know PES University here. He's the owner of PES. And he played table tennis with me. Everything has got some table tennis connection, as you probably realize now. So he was about 3-4 years my senior. We had done his master's and come back, and he was starting to run the university. He had an idea, simple idea. 2% of students manage to get into a good college like RVC or PES. 98% of them won't. Can we use technology to bridge that gap? Can we take the best teacher to the last student? That was the thought. And we started with that in 2000. I remember Jan 26th, on Republic Day, we pitched to Mr. Mimi Jagdish, who is founder of Exodus, one of the earliest hosting company. We asked for 4 crores, and by evening he said yes. So we didn't know what to do because we were not expecting to hear again. And so that's how we started.
So just for all those that don't know, EduRite got merged into Tutor stuff, which was sort of one of the original startups from Ganesh. And then you were part of that, and then got acquired by Pearson, and then, of course, to Byju's. So tell us through that journey, because that probably is one of the longest journeys. And, you've been part of an acquisition, you ran that, you then ran Pearson as the head of India. And again, the reason I'm asking all this is this was before India really was known for startups, which really started happening more post the Flipkarts and, the 2012, 2013 time period. So till then, to be part of this whole startup ecosystem, what did it even take?
It took a lot of patience. It took lots of getting money to do more than what probably can do today. So quite a bit of frugality I learned then. Because typically, like you're saying, right, the ecosystem was just not there. So what had happened was we had raised money during the dot-com boom, which was good, 2000. And after that, we could not raise too much money. And obviously, we made lots of mistakes. 2002, we almost shut. That was my first near-death experience. September 23rd, I had to let go of about 75 people out of 100.
Wow.
So about 75% of my team. And pretty much reset the business and start from scratch. So that was when I actually took over as CEO. Till then, I was CEO of the business. Took over as CEO. Java stepped back because he said, I'll run the college, etc. I started running the business and slowly steered it toward. Took me a good 4 to 5 years to steer it towards a spike. That time, 1 million was about 5 crore. About 5-6 crore ka revenue and about 1 crore profits. In an e-learning business, much ahead of its time, as probably now, and I can say very, very ahead of its time. No phone, not much. PC penetration was 2% in homes, 2%. Internet penetration, I didn't have to tell you, and so on and so forth. So at that time, to run an e-learning business and to make it profitable, but again, did many things. I don't know how much time we have, but there's spoken about it earlier, but we've done some interesting stuff. I realized that education or e-learning was not a business at that point in time which could go mainstream, which means you could not go and sell to people's homes, to their children, to the parents, and make money out of it. Because finding that parent was so expensive from a marketing perspective that the product cost became too high for you to sell to them. And if you sell it at that price, then nobody will buy anything. So it's like a lose-lose kind of a flywheel. So then I decided to piggyback on stuff which was anyway going to the home. So I started to piggyback on PCs. I started to piggyback on books and so on. So some interesting stuff around that. But net survived for about 5 years. Grew that business from pretty much zero to about 5-6 crores profitable. The ecosystem had not grown. So what PCs were doing was they put some money and then they just keep watching. I mean, whether you're alive, dead, whatever, they keep coming and seeing you. So it became quite frustrating, in fact, after 5-6 years, because it's like zombie stage, right? At that time, all these terms were not there. I had coined a term saying, I feel like the monkey in the circus. Literally, I told this to my VC also then. I said, you know what, every 3 months you guys come. I show you some new trick every 3 months. You come, you clap, or you don't clap, and then you go away. And then after 3 months, you expect to see one more trick. So, no, but that was the truth. I had, and I had to say it because obviously there was a lot of angst. But still I didn't get any more money from the series, even though I said that. So I don't know if this is helping you.
It's there are some parts of this conversation which you should forget, forgive, and move on before you come to us to fix. Is the problem with someone who's had 30 years is in a 40 minutes, there's only so much to unpack. But I have a very different question. Are you still in touch with education as a category?
Very dear, my first love.
Your first love. So what would you, if you were to go back to your first love today, what would be the business that you start?
I would run a school.
Oh, wow. Not anything AI.
Simple, 7 years, get the ROI in 50% EBITDA. That's it.
So the problem in asking these questions to a gray-haired entrepreneur is this. He knows exactly what to build. What school? So elaborate in terms of, this whole construct of, I'm going to do a bit of a digression before I come back to Homelane. There's so much talk about AI. There's so much talk about AI's impact specifically in education. Where, especially a use case like India, where there are millions of students and there'll never be a good enough teacher to student ratio. The point that you said, which is 98% of, the original sort of starting mission. Today, maybe that's 90% still.
Yeah.
What would the school do, or what are the other ideas that you would actually adopt?
I definitely add entrepreneurship, which I don't think we do enough of in our country. In fact, we don't do at all. I think very, very few schools do that. I think we don't teach even about risk generally. I also learned about it on my own, as in I failed or whatever, took risks, succeeded, failed, whatever, then learned, this is not bad. Or I should probably be careful the next time or whatever. But we don't teach it as a science, as a subject. I think we should, because I think it will create more entrepreneurs and definitely we need more entrepreneurs. So I do feel very much that will be one area. Tech would obviously be there today. Obviously, it's AI. Tomorrow it can be something else. Yesterday it was something else. But definitely tech. But I don't think that's the only thing. I also think in India, in the earlier stages, we don't go too broad. We should go broader. When I'm talking, now we have some liberal arts kind of colleges coming up across the country. You have Ashokas, you have Clean, you have few good ones like that. But otherwise, at least when I studied, that's it. There were just two options, or a third was you're a loser, basically.
Let's not get into which are the two and which is the loser option. So I think again, before I come to the Homelane story, you talked a lot about near-death experiences. How do you handle something which is near death? What sort of is your mind frame? And generally, what's your sort of construct to handle failures? Or, 75 people out of 100 is a pretty shattering blow. What's your construct?
So maybe I'll talk on it, George. Maybe sure. I can talk the one that you're talking about, and then I can talk about something that happened at Homelane also.
Absolutely.
So that I can kind of compare. I've also not done it, so let me do it on the fly. So the first time and the most devastating one for me personally was the first time I had to let go of 75 people. Like 100 people, you can imagine, not so large, not very small, but not too large. Pretty much know everybody's name. And there was no HR team. I was the HR. I was the finance guy. I had to sign the check, and I didn't have money to give them also, by the way. So I basically started the same day, September 23rd, 2002. I still remember. I'll never forget that day. Started in one meeting room at about 8 o'clock in the morning. Finished at about 8 in the evening. Definitely needed more than 2 drinks that day, I can tell you. But I spoke with every single one of the 75 myself. And at that point in time, I did not have enough money to pay them 1 month notice. I paid them the same day, 15 days notice. But what I have seen, transparency helps a lot. Direct communication helps a lot. There are some things that you should not delegate. There are a lot of things you should delegate when you're running a business, especially when it has grown. But there are some things that you should need to do yourself. To me, this is one of the ones. You obviously cannot do every single task yourself, but you need to be there when the shit is hitting the roof. I mean, it has to be done. I think that builds the culture of the company. In fact, one of the things that I believe is the best time to build company culture is during the difficult times. And I come now to Homelane. COVID, I mean, it happened to everyone. We were about 1,100 of us. And we had about 6 to 8 months of runway when COVID hit. We had no choice. We had to cut down to about 800. So I had to let go of about 275 or so people. I still remember 2-3 things that we did differently. I won't go into the normal ones. I'm sure you've heard this from many founders. We took pay cuts. We did this. We did all of the above. But we did 2 or 3 things very differently. The first thing is I made sure I spoke. I did the same thing again. Started at 8. That time it was virtual because COVID, you could not meet directly. 8 to 8. Again, I did 30 meetings that day, one-on-one, myself, along with few of the others in HR who did the rest of the 250 or meetings. So, making sure that you are there. What really broke my heart was 1 or 2 conversations where the guy is a project manager. I mean, he goes to a house to manage a project. He says, sir, it's okay, sir. I first was so happy that at least I got a chance to speak to you today. So it was like, boss, don't even go there. I mean, first of all, I'm not going to be able to sleep today on top of that. So A, make sure you're there. B, make sure that the load is across. So the one thing that we did was we said, this is going to be a big shock to the system for quite some time. This is not going to go away in a week, in a month or so. So we need to shift the weight across board. Everybody needs to carry some weight. So transparently, we declared management salaries, what they're going to be. So I started with 0. My co-founder started with whatever, minus 75%, and so on and so forth. We put it up, when I'm saying put it up, in a town hall for everybody to see. We openly announced that we had let go of 300 people. And we did this one day after we finished this exercise. So transparency again helps there. What again we did was, we also told the guys who were letting go of their salary that you're not the only one who's going to be actually sacrificing here. I mean, that doesn't have to be. I went to my board. I told them our last round valuation was 100 million. We had just raised before COVID sometime. It was about 100 million. I said, I want 3% of the company. 3% of the company, I will save 6 crores of salary over the next 1 year. But I want to give 3x of that because COVID, nobody knows whether we'll come out of this alive. If we do, I want them to get 3x benefit of that. Right? So every single person, by the way, including me, who gave up money, and this was never paid back. So this was like money that they gave up. They all got 3x. So basically the board also, or the cap table also took some weight. Obviously, things like that. So basically you innovate a little bit more on how do you distribute this across rather than 1 or 2 entities taking the whole shop.
I think, at the end of the acquisition of Tutor Vista and then Pearson, you ran that. You realized obviously within a year that you have to start up again. Obviously, why did you get into this business? What was the vision as of 2014? Does it still, congratulations on 10 years, does it still stay the course in 2024? And if you look at the next 10 years, what is that vision?
Yeah. So when I got out of VedTech and I worked for Pearson very shortly, I thought I'd never worked for someone. Let me just try, give it a shot. I tried my best for a year after we got 100% acquired, and I hated it. I was just like a fish out of water. I just couldn't figure out corporate life at all. And I said, you know what, this is just not for me. I had sold the business also. I was not even a shareholder. So I said, no, let me just get out. I did give them some time because it was fair. I had been running the business for 14 years. They asked me for 1 year. I said, not possible. So we negotiated 5 months. I stayed on. And in the 5 months, I told them that I will also think about what next. So there were only 2 options in my mind. One more at tech, because I'd finished non-compete. I was free to do whatever I wanted. So the natural, this one was at tech. But in 14 years, I kind of developed tech fatigue, as I call it. I said, yaar, ye to matlab bahut sar maan liya iske upar. Let me find some other wall now to break my head on kind of thing. So the other thought that came was in consumer. And one of the things that I thought of over the last 2-3 years in my Pearson journey, I had tried to do up a couple of homes, and both the times, once I was going to move in myself and once I was trying to rent out the place, both the times it was an awful experience. And it sounded like a very complicated problem to solve. And I was only looking at a product plus a service kind of a thing. Urban Ladder and Pepperfry were pretty much already established, I think, 2011, 12 kind of thing. In fact, I think we also met for something, I'm trying to remember why. But so I was clear that the product was already taken. And there were already players who were well funded. You guys had raised some 50, 100 million, and they also raised some 50, 100 million. So I said, that one. And second, I thought that there was a play where there was a combination of product and service. So there were 2-3 conditions. One is a minimum ticket size of about 2-3 lakhs. Less than that doesn't really make sense to me. Second, if you don't play in a combination of product and service, either the Pepperfry or Urban Ladder will kill you at some point in time, or the Amazon and Flipkart will come and get you if it's only a product play, right? So purely, so I said that's a no-no. So that definitely needs to be this combination. And I felt this was a real consumer pain point. I mean, even today you talk to 10 people on the road who have done up their houses and ask them, hopefully Homelane has not done their house, but even now they will probably cry on your shoulder before they send you on your way, right? So I said, this definitely seems to be resonating with the customer. So why not try and build a brand? I did some first-hand market research. I went and met a few people. I met a few builders. Because I was in education, I knew a few builders who were all owned schools or colleges. So I met Mr. Sushil Mantri, I met Mr. Nitesh Shetty, I met Dhruv Agarwal, who runs Prop Tiger. So I met few of them face to face, asked them, what, am I smoking something? Does it have legs? Can I try? Can I put in 5 years behind this? So all of them said, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. But I was very clear that I was going after the fit-out industry specifically. I'm also a little bit of a maniacal believer in going deeper rather than going too wide, maybe some other day. But yeah, that was one thing that helped. And I was clear of what I didn't want to do. I keep saying that from time to time. At that time, I was very clear. Even now, we sell Urban Ladder furniture. We don't make our own loose furniture. We don't make fruit sofas, cots, not anymore. We never make. So yeah, we only trade.
So what's the, and I absolutely, if anyone has done furniture in their life, they will tell you that this is one of the biggest spaces. Why did you take on such a, I agree on the other side that, the same logic we used to start with furniture to say Amazon and Flipkart will enter that the last is actually very fair to say that Urban Ladder and Pepperfry would probably enter fit outs the last. And we tried it for a year and a half, gave up. And it was one of the it was almost like building a different company within a company. And we had many chats during that time, right, with Srikanth. So why did you take on this difficult problem? And today, if you were to sort of build this company, product plus service, how do you build culture? Because at the end of the day, it's the service that's being offered, the installation service, the post-factor service. It's such a tough business. Manufacturing is so tough. It's almost like building a massive business. What has that taught you? How do you build that culture?
So today we are about 1,200 people. By the way, I can let you in on a little bit of a secret. Tomorrow we announce, please don't tell anybody till then. We just acquired Design Cafe.
Oh, congrats. Big. Okay, so I was going to ask him this, but this news has not come out. So it's good that you said this to him.
Probably more about it tomorrow. But yeah, totally, we're going to be about 3,000 people. And we're probably going to be about 1,000 crores this year. And we will be a bit profitable this year. So that's at least most of it is there. Some of it is hope. But yeah, so that's the size that we are at. Why this business? I just found that it was a real big customer pain point which resonated a lot. So I said, I know it's a tough problem. I knew going in that it was a really operationally difficult problem to solve. But I said, let me break it down and try and solve this problem. So the first thing that I did was, I said, I'm not going to be a back-end manufacturer. I'm going to focus more on front-end, which is on the demand side. and see how I will own the customer. Everything else became secondary. Whether I'm manufacturing in my own factory or not, I said if I'm owning the customer, I can always backward integrate at some point in time. By the way, that's playing out now. We still don't own a single factory, but in the next 12 months, we may own the first factory ever. So, because this is a zero risk now for me, because the 1,000 houses we're delivering today per month is not going to go anywhere because I control that whole customer acquisition and delivery. I don't need to control every aspect of it. As long as I can control the quality aspect without owning it. What was there a way? There seemed to be a way. IKEA was doing it at that time. Few others were doing it. So I said, let me break this down. So there was design, sales and design, let me say. There was manufacturing and there was last mile install. These were the three big problems basically to solve. So I said sales and design I have to solve myself because that's owning the customer. Design is the main experience they can't force, so you need to own it. Don't outsource too much. The second was manufacturing, I already spoke about. The third one was trickiest because the third one was where most people failed, which was the last mile installation where you needed to own it. Owning it to me was completely no-no, simply because it was not scalable. Just imagine me trying to install a kitchen in Thane and me sitting here and trying to run an urban company B2B version of it and try to do some carpentry there, a little bit of, because a kitchen will involve some carpentry, some plumbing, some electrical work. You need to have 3 different skilled laborers over there. How am I even going to do it efficiently from here? If I don't do it efficiently at some point in time, I will lose too much money and shut, basically. So I said, the only way to do this is to have it decentralized. But I also need to have control of the customer experience by having it decentralized. How do I do it? So I said, let me do something, what I termed at that time called controlled decentralization, where we only have franchisees, and these were all stores which were FOCO, franchisee owned, company operated. We used to run the store. They used to invest in the store. Why? Because once he invested in the store, he was joined at the hip with us for a minimum period of 3 years because his ROI came in 3 years. So for 3 years, he's not going anywhere. And if he's not going anywhere, then he will behave himself, so to speak. Otherwise, in India, to legally bind somebody to behave is impossible. I mean, it's just not. If he decides not to, you can't do much about it. So the only way is to commercially align interests and make sure that they're doing what you want. So did that. So today, even today, we have about 57 stores and about 40 franchisees who own these 57. We don't own a single store even today. All the stores that are there across the country. And the last mile installs are done by the same franchisees. So kind of split the problem into these 3 parts and solved for them separately and then kind of brought it together.
That's someone reaching 1,000 crores profitably in this business is one of the toughest. We tried to scale this in 2014-15 to 1 crore. It was so difficult. We had to give up within a year and a half. And I think to hold that culture to that level of service, I think you hear from customers, I think they always have generally positive things to say about Homelane. So congratulations on getting to that level. I have a very interesting, different question given tomorrow's announcement. I have seen you acquire a bunch of folks and everyone swears by you. There are still some people who continue and take on some senior roles and have stuck by you. What is your success into integration, and best wishes to Geeta and the whole Shiza. So I think, you do something different with your team members. And a related question to that, not related to acquisition, is what is founder mode for Srikanth? Like, do you really get into, stuff, or do you let your leaders run the show?
So actually, let me take the first one. I think, I'm sure you've heard this, the cliche, but the real trick is to actually, once you reach a certain scale, till a certain scale, you have to do most of the, dirty work yourself. But once you reach a certain scale, the only way is to get people who are better, who know, you need different people for a 0 to 1 or a 1 to 10 and for a 10 to 100 journey. Do you have the humility to realize if you are the person for all the 3? Many times we are not. Founders, most of the time, refuse to accept this. Refuse. Right? I can tell you very clearly, we are now in the 10 to 100 journey. I don't run the business operationally. I don't have any qualms in saying it. Because I'm not the best guy to run a 10 to 100 business this complex operationally. And that's not my job. My job is to build a culture. My job is to raise money. My job is to do acquisitions where we have a accretive outcome. That's my job. So let me be clear. And that was not my job 5 years back. But I had to do different role then. But do you have, again I'm going back, will you have the humility? Because that really is where this starts, according to me. That's probably also one of the reasons why many people have stuck. I'm proud that many people have stuck. Actually, one of the Antler, I don't know if you know Vivek Sitaraman.
Of course.
He used to be our CPO. We acquired his company. He was there about 6 years.
Do up.
Yeah.
No, and he's now an Antler Singapore founder. So I just realized with you, suddenly time flies. So we should have time for questions from the audience. I'm going to ask just one question and maybe 4 5 rapid fire before I let you into the audience questions. You've sort of grown in an era where sustainability and frugality, and now suddenly to raise tens of millions of dollars, what did it take to make that shift?
Look, first of all, I was born in an era where there was no VC.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that you could actually raise money for a business which was making a loss. It took me about a year to come to terms with this whole thought itself. But then I kind of caught onto it, well, I can say so myself. Take manage. I do think, again, do you have the ability to unlearn and relearn? Really, that's what it is. Because at least for me, that was very, very hard. The unlearning part was very, very hard. Because I had always been taught that, for every transaction, and my first business was in hardware. I mean, that was like ruled by the Marathis and the Sindhis, and I learned from them. I mean, I've learned some of those lessons are invaluable. I mean, I have not seen them make a single transaction where they would take a hit. I'll give you one anecdote. Sorry I'm going to digress, but this anecdote stayed with me. So one big learning for me, I was training, I told you, right? I used to assemble computer. Basically, it was a nice way to say smuggled. Okay, smuggling. Literally, those computer parts used to be smuggled. Duty used to be avoided. Everything was in cash. And then you could sell it here for a decent margin. That was the business. I mean, I can say it more respectable ways, but unfortunately, that's what it was. So, long story short, one deal, I had gone for some conference or something to Singapore. Somebody sold me a lemon. So that time I used to get these memory chips, RAM chips. And I bought a lot, which I thought was going to be the next hottest thing. And which unfortunately was not going to be the next hottest thing. And I realized that a little too late. So I came back here and I had Mr. Singhania was my Marwadi supplier. I went and poured my woes to him and I said, you know what, I've already paid for this and this shipment is arriving. And I called 10 of the top dealers in Bangalore yesterday. And I asked them if anybody wanted this, and my pricing was also attractive, but none of them said that they wanted. He said, you're an idiot. I said, okay, what do I do now? I said, okay, you give me those 10 numbers. He called the same 10 guys from some different phones, not from his phone. At that time, mobiles not yet started. So from 10 different phones. And then he said, you know what, I don't want to sell, I want to buy. He told all 10 of them, and all 10 of them, and he gave different names, and he disconnected the phone. And he said, okay, 2 days later you call them, they will buy it from me. I said it. I really felt like a fool. But I was also a happy fool because I managed to sell it and not make a loss. I didn't make too much money on it, but I didn't make a loss at least. I got it. So
I don't know what to learn from this exam. We will make sure we edit this part first. Rapid fire. Okay. So what's the I don't think, I think I can guess this, but what's the advice going to be for your own 20-year-old?
I think take more risk. Maybe don't leave so much on the table. I always think I leave too much on the table. The reverse program.
Oh, what's your biggest win at Homelane?
If we ever go public, which is planned in the next 12 months or so, that's going to be the biggest.
Okay. How did you get Dhoni to advertise?
So that was also quite
Does he play T20?
interesting. He does. He's decent, but he still lost. But we got introduced through an agency we considered a lot of them. He fit the brand very, very well. The downside was that he was and is super overexposed. He kind of, I think, is on TV for some 43 brands or something like that last I counted at the same time. So that was the problem. But then through age group, through gender, you take one tier 2 metro, any town in India, the popularity was unmatched. And more than that, we wanted a brand which was a superhero archetype, which was more earn your stripes. You will show the way. Don't worry, trust, right? So you're getting into a home interiors journey. It's a bit perplexing. So don't worry, this brand you can trust and we'll show you the way. He fit all of that. So we went to him and we said, we can't pay you the money that you're asking. But we're just raising around and we are happy to pay you 50% in cash, but 50% has to be in stock. So he took it.
Are you an RCB fan or a CSK fan?
RCB.
Sad. What's your stack ranking of career, social, health, and wealth?
Okay. Definitely career, health, wealth, social.
Okay. Last question last but one. Your wackiest VC rejection?
Wackiest, okay. So there was this one time where Sequoia is an investor in Homelane, and they have this Sequoia pit stop every year where, only for their investee companies, they have a kind of a mela, if we call it that, in Singapore, where you can pitch to VCs who come there. This was during COVID, and it was virtual. And we were pitching to this, I don't want to name the VC. He was dope. I'm not joking. He was. I didn't know. I was at home. It was all virtual. He was sitting in India somewhere. I don't know where. So he came on the video it was a 1 hour, 45-minute meeting. He came on for exactly 45 seconds on video. And in that 45 seconds, I could make out that he was gone. And then he was off video for the rest of the 44 minutes. He was off video. We may not had the meeting. Even at the end of the meeting, he didn't come on video and said, oh, hey, I thought maybe I actually sounded like a recording with me after that. What laid out, Anyway, they say the same thing at the end of the meeting. Yeah, great job. You're such a good experience for the, I love you. We so thrilled to take this forward. etc. And so I said, okay. And that was, I've never ever heard from him again. But that to me was, I've heard all kinds of rejections, this will not scale, TAM is not there, SAM is not there, D is not there, whatever. All that is okay. But this was the first time somebody, just didn't come even on the call, and I was clearly, like I said, though.
If you hear rejections from us, we will be on video and we will not be doped. I promise. Last question before I get to the audience. If it was not interiors, what other business would you be doing? And not education?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I don't know, actually. Probably something in consumer, because consumers always interested me a lot. I like to think a little bit on the consumer shoes and try to imagine what the my TG actually will value more, etc. I do a lot of self actualization on that. I like that, and I do think there is some insight there which I have, which I think can fly. And that was actually one other thing I wanted to leave you guys with. The one thing that's been, I've spent 14 years in education and 10 years now in Homelane, not out. Right? So what this 24 years across, even before that, but I would leave that out because it's not really too much scale. But this has taught me, the common one to me has been just one, if I were to just leave one insight as to across these diverse, right, education and home interiors, has been, if you are sure about the insight that you have on your customer and or on your industry, stick with it for at least a few years. Because many times we give up a little too early on the insight. And you will find that you will see a lot of naysayers who actually will come around, and it can be your own colleagues also. It doesn't, you can work with them still, but they may not be believers. What I'm saying is, stick with those insights. I'm happy to, we don't have time today, but some other time maybe, happy to speak about some of those insights that I had both in education and in home interiors, which I just kept maybe even foolhardy or stubborn or whatever you want to call it. But I said, no, yeah, he asked me, right? It has such complicated business, so much of this one. Why would you start something in this? But I had an insight and I just stuck to it. I said, no, this will scale, this will happen. And even in that, I was very clear on the segment I was going after. I was also clear on the segment I was not going after. So just that's one thing that I need to do. Just stick with the insight. You don't need to have 10 insights or whatever, Swami Vivekananda reincarnations for you to be successful. You just need one or two, but stick to it.
Okay, on that note, let's take questions from the audience.
Key question. First, I mean, we've got other speakers here and say that, in India, it's a passion to build and keep with the idea for a long period of time. Maybe change the problem where it is time to quit.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you think about that? And Rajiv asked a question, what advice would you give to India? Also give an innovation, but
yeah. So let me take the first one. First of all, I think there's no other way to build other than frugally. I can't think of too many businesses which have not been built frugally, which have stood the test of time. So I don't know about fashionable. Maybe I am old-fashioned that way, but I do think it's important to build that culture also. If you want to build something which is a legacy, long-standing, whatever, you're there, not there is different. But I think that's one point. I agree with the point on when to let go. I mean, that's why I said, do you have the humility to look at the mirror and tell the truth and nothing but the truth? I think that really is the answer to your question, which is, you may not have the answer. You may be chasing the wrong tree. You may be barking up the wrong tree. So, but do you have the ability to do that is the question. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who keep just going round and round and round. That's long state that I told you. I mean, I can point you to innumerable number of businesses, but they can't even let go. This is like that, Batman, Nolan Batman fans, right? So you remember Batman 2 in the well, when the guy doesn't climb up, only person who climbed up was the one without the rope. Sometimes your salary or your idea or you're wedded to that idea is that rope. Can you cut it out and try and jump is the question. To me, that's what it is. Do you have these? Again, I go back to humility. I do think humility has a big part to play here, because sometimes ego blocks us from accepting what we might have done wrong, to really self-actualize and see whether, okay, man, I've spent 5 years now. Do I still want to do this? But if you are sure that, I have found that. I mean, I can tell you, let me maybe take that. In 2014, I started, and first round was very easy. Two of my earlier investors from EdTech wrote checks, Sequoia and Ranjan Pai, Arif. Both of them were investors. They made 6x, 7x in the previous ones. They happily wrote a check for 2 million, 1 million, whatever. I raised about 3 million. Started off. Went to about 3 to 4 crores a month of revenue, which was fantastic. I mean, it's been like 1 year. Even now, if you Google and see, they'll show you saying Homelane has raised 50 million in 2016 or 15, something like that. Oh, sorry, 16. I went to the market to raise 50 million. I raised 2 million. After meeting 149 VCs, I kept count. 2 million I raised. It was the most humbling experience of my life. But I kept at it. I knew I was up. I knew I had made mistakes over the last 2 years. I knew what mistakes I had made. That was the insight I was talking about. But I knew what I needed to do to get it back on path, and I knew that that would scale. So I just needed that. So my internal investors backed me. Long story short, again, I managed to make that 2 million or 10 million round because internals put in 8 more million. And obviously, I gave them a good deal. And like they say, the rest is history. So that's the difference between whether you want to, yeah, it is risky, but if you really can look at the mirror and tell the truth and go by that, then you will not fail. Fail, you may even shut the business. That's also not failure. I mean, that's what I mean. You will not go wrong. Okay, I pay.
I have questions. In education space, right? And there were 2% penetration. I saw it. We said there was a 2%.
Yeah.
So it was definitely an operationally heavy situation.
Yeah.
What were those innovative, let's say, GTM strategies like that? What I actually mentioned was you kind of packaged goods along and then sold it forward. What the hell other rules?
So I tell you again, I told you I was a very in-principle kind of thinking guy. So I said, okay, I need my business to earn $1 million revenue or $2 million revenue. Something in that ballpark. I was happy with that as long as it was profitable. So I said there are 2 ways in India to earn a $1 million revenue in e-learning. E-learning was very, very, very early. In fact, not too many people heard about it. One was to charge $100 per product, which is what my product I needed to charge, and get about 1,000 customers to get, about $1 million. Is that?
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, 100 per month. Or $100, get 10,000 customers. Finding 10,000 customers who had with 2% PC penetration, who had PCs, who had kids. And by the way, I had content only from 9 to 12 then, and who were in 9 to 12, and who would learn from a CD-ROM, was like finding a needle in a haystack, or even worse than that. So that became the problem. So then I said there are 2 ways of doing this. One is to 10,000 into $100 can give you $1 million. But can I find 2 million people who can pay me 50 cents? That's also going to give you $1 million. Why? I've already invested money on the content. I'm not going to spend any more money on making content. It's only distribution. If my distribution problem can be solved, can I solve this? So that was the principle on which I started. I first went to Intel. Intel used to sell home PCs. I took a McKinsey report. I had found it somewhere. A McKinsey report said last 6 years, home PC penetration in India, the number 1 reason for people to buy home PCs is education. Okay. By the way, side secret, the number 6 in terms of usage was education. After they buy, they don't use it for education. But they buy thinking that I'm education ke liye use karenge. After that, I don't want to say what the top 5 are, but enough to see. So I went to Intel. I told them, hey, you know what? You're selling an empty mug. I'll give you like hot coffee, which you can serve in the mug, which people think that they want. Forget whether they use or not. I'm only telling you. Right? I'll give you the best content for all the top syllabi in the country, which you will bundle on the hard disk along with your PC. You pay me $200 a pop. 200 rupees. Why should you pay me that? Because the perceived value that your customer is getting is a few thousand rupees. And I'm giving you all of it for every customer of yours. At first, of course, I'm cutting a long story short, they bought it. They gave me 3 OEMs, LG, HCL, and there was a company called Sahara Computers. I don't know if you remember. These were the 3 OEMs they gave me. They bought thousands of copies from me, by the way. Started with that. Then I said, what will give me more volume? More volume. Anyone wants to do, anybody in EdTech here? One. Okay. How many textbooks are sold in India in a year? No, too late. Bolo.
CR students are there, so everyone is.
वो तो ठीक है, that I also know. But I'm saying number, okay, 500 million, mota, okay? So about 25 crores. So whatever, 250 million, 4 books. Half of them are hand-me-downs. That's about 1 billion books. Half of them are hand-me-downs, so about 500 million books. 500 million books are sold every year in India. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to the top CBSE publishers and ICSE publishers, and I will tell them, I will give you white labeled content. You go and pitch your textbook. Your textbook today, I don't know how many of you have read Frank Brothers' textbook in CBSE, S. Chan textbook in CBSE, anybody, right? So I went to all of these guys. I told them, hey, one book, 100 rupees is your textbook. One more book with CD-ROM, with all the animations of all the concepts in your own brand, 130 rupees. Which one would you buy? I said, I want 25 bucks, you keep $5, and let's go kill the market. Okay? One guy bought this. One guy. I met 10. Frank Brothers. Believe you me, they were my customers for 12 years, even after Pearson acquired. Pearson was a competitive publisher to Frank Brothers. They acquired us. Even after that, Frank Brothers said, please, yaar, CD de de mere ko. Because they had already made it part of their book and they could not now get out. And they were buying lakhs of copies from me. So they bought. And then I said, how can I make this? I became even more greedy. What? FMCG. Anybody wants to guess how many biscuit packs Britannia sells in a day in India? Crores में बोलो यार.
2 crores. 2 crores.
थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया. 1 crore. 1 crore packs. Okay. So I went to Britannia. I told them, आप बोल रहे हो eat. What's Britannia's tagline? Anyone? Eat healthy, think better. I said, eat healthy के लिए तो ग्लूकोज बिस्किट दे रहे हो. Think better के लिए क्या कर रहे हो? घंटा कुछ नहीं कर रहे हो. So I said, I give you e-learning. You package it with Tiger biscuit. Of course, Tiger biscuit is 10 rupees. CD is more than that. That's the obvious thing. But then you had Britannia ka World Cup jao, right? Remember? I don't know how many of you were born then again. But you can collect, basically point system. You buy 10 packets, you can buy one, get one CD. Right? What did I want? I wanted distribution. I wanted to be paying for distribution. Ulta. And then reverse kar diya. I said, what do I have? I have content, valuable, which is, what was the insight? The core insight was simple. Okay? And okay, so let me tell you. By the way, Britannia didn't buy from me. I'm all telling you. Let me not give you all good stories. I met again about 20 of these brand guys. Kellogg's Cornflakes, Horlicks, Bone Vita, everybody, you name it, I would have met them, right? One guy bought my idea, who is Manish Agarwal, who ran Nazara Games till recently, you may have heard of him. He bought my idea. He used to be the brand manager of what? Rin Fabric Wash. You know, I will do it. Story goes, he is going to a flight. He said, I'll give you fine. As always, you know how, cheaply go with on tie and sir, 5 minutes. I said, 5 minutes, I'll give you. I have to go catch a flight. I said, mother, now don't mind if it sounds a little bit sexist, but mother is the decision. All of us, most of us, mother is the decision maker for education. So mother is the decision maker for education. Mother decides on fabric wash. Why are you bundling the bucket with fabric wash? Bundle education with fabric wash. That was my 2-line pitch to him. He bought about 20 lakh copies in 6 months' time. And at 12 rupees. But that time my CD cost was $6. 50% gross margin, can you imagine? So that was what kept us afloat. So that was, if you are asking for the GTM, long answer, sorry, but these were some of the ones which were the GTM ones. Which
Rayman CD is like,
yeah,
nobody would actually develop it.
Correct.
The second question, since you're being so candid about how you see the conversation happening, I'm going to ask you one preferred question. As ever, because the way you actually run your business, you see a lot of like services in general, right? I have never heard what in a conversation that you've ever had. That VCs come back and told you, okay, it seems to be a service and nonetheless not to scale it. So how would you actually?
So I told you about two things, right? One is about humility. सुन लो, सब कुछ सुन लो, प्यार से सुन लो, जो आप तुमको करना है वही करो. Also be stubborn. If you are sure about the path, sure. But again, I go back again to humility. If you are getting good advice, it's up to you and your ability to take that good advice with the seriousness it deserves. It can come from anyone. I mean, VCs can be wrong. We can also be wrong, right? It's not like it's always the other way around. It may feel like that sometimes, but it's not. I can tell you. So I would definitely say it goes back to that piece where can you really look the truth in the face and identify? That's what it boils down to. It's much more difficult when you're earlier in your startup. I agree. It becomes a little more clearer as you keep going. But the ability for you to discern still is. I mean, if you're still sure, go for it. I mean, that's why you are you. That's why it's a unique idea and it's a unique business.
Yeah, I really like how you said customers think what they want, but it could not be the need necessarily. So how do you really, do you have any framework to find what they want, like what they think what they want, but not necessarily what they want? Like you found in McKinsey report that on the 6th number that customers think that they want computers for education.
So I don't have a framework, but I tell you the way that you can think from, let's say, a tech product kind of a perspective. Again, I've far not been a techie, but I think product like a tech little bit. So I'll give you one example, right? We used to sell in my EduRite, but the earlier tech business, we used to sell a lot of content into schools and we used to sell it to classrooms. So we had about 25,000 classrooms. Some of you may have had this with the projector and the smart board there with the content on it. A lot of them were mine. About 25,000 classrooms of them were installed by us. So we had a product called Digital Ally, basically, where one feature I insisted on introducing, which was there were a lot of content which was available, right? But the fact is that you are not involving the teacher. You're making the teacher pretty much a puppet. Acha, you press play, you press pause, you press end. I mean, but the teacher is not used to that. The teacher is used to controlling the class. At least they think that they are used to controlling the class, right? So one feature that I introduced was we integrated this whole product as an add-on to PowerPoint. Every teacher uses PowerPoint if they have a computer in the classroom. So this was an add-on to PowerPoint. So basically what I did was, instead of giving them all the content already structured, I said, I'll give it to you in 3-minute animations, 4-minute animations, right? And I said, you put it together, because what I can do is I can give you the content, but you need to beautify it, you need to structure it, you need to add value to it to make sense. Now, I can tell you one thing, 95% of the teachers didn't even touch it. They all used the lesson plans which were ready-made. But they loved this feature because when they bought the product, they said, "Arey, isme to main customize kar sakti hu." Customize kiya nahi usne. But when I'm selling it, it becomes easy for me to sell. Are you getting my... So that's when I said, what's the insight there? The insight is that you normally think of yourself in a little more romantic fashion than what the truth actually is. Right? So now all of us are like that, which is... So you also think that you won't do something like this, but you may not, because you will get, too stuck in attendance and other admin and do too much of work for you to actually do customization of content. But when you buy the product, you're not thinking of all that. So this feature actually became a big hit because we said we are not taking your individuality away. We started now playing it fully aggressively. We said, "Arey, your individuality as Mrs. So-and-so, you should stand out in your class. You are the best physics teacher. So you cannot play the same thing that the next teacher is playing. And all that became a big differentiator, so to speak, while selling it again. So I hope that answers you.
Yeah,
So, I don't.
Thanks for the formula. I know that this is aspect.
Yeah.
Like you're essentially running how franchisee led services.
Yes.
How do we do quality while balancing the rigidity that would come with the quality above that scale, right? Is it like I can run a restaurant franchisee thing that way burger, but I think I get like that. You want to be 10 steps and that is that. Whatever is the highly customized product that you're selling at the end.
So there are two places where you have the service aspect playing in and the quality aspect playing in. One is in the product and one is in the service, and I'll answer each of them separately. The product one is actually much simpler. What we do is we have factories which 100% do job work only for Homelane today, because we have the scale. We do 1,000 homes, we do 1 million square feet of processing of whatever modular furniture every month today. So we have dedicated 3-4 factory who do only that. From day one, I have always said, raw material मैं खरीदूं, तुम नहीं खरीदो. If I allow you to buy as an individual factory, then anything can happen. I also cannot make or forget my customer making it, right? So I said that I will never compromise. I will only, what I have quoted to the customer, to the last pin, the same brand will go, the same quality will go. So that is out of the question, and that factory does no work for nobody else. Cannot. It's a contracted. The last piece is all the QC at all my factories are all my employees. Only the QC. So every factory will have whatever, let's say 8 of them. जो भी बाहर जाता है, QC के बाद ही जाता है, and QC is done. So product is done. Service is actually the more tricky part because you're first of all decentralizing. So that's why I said, right, I use the franchisee, which is a little bit of controlled decentralization. I have to now control only these 40 franchisees of mine for these 57 odd stores. Because they themselves have 40 to 50 carpenters or whatever, fitters each, who go and do the last mile installs. As long as commercially they're aligned with me, they will behave. I've added one more aspect to this. Every customer rates us. Every single customer gives us an NPS rating. Must and should. 75%. So we have delivered about 45,000 homes so far. About 35,000 of them have rated us in the last 10 years. This is actual statistic. Okay. The franchisee gets a plus 1%. 1% is a lot, by the way. Revenue share if the NPS rating is a promoter. And by the way, gets a minus 1% if the NPS rating is a detractor. And gets no either minus nor plus if it is a passive. You know how NPS works. I'm not going to go into it. So if it's so A, they align commercially, so they're not going to run away. B, they align to customer satisfaction. Now the only thing is, how do you get that unbiased view from the customer without anybody influencing that view? That's the only piece to solve, which is simple to do today, right? In today's technology, from a WhatsApp to anything, you can pretty much get it without me.
Did you centralize training also of?
Yeah. Each one of them centralized. So forget, I'm not the best things. Everybody wears Homelane t-shirt and goes. Everybody is trained not on carpentry because all of them are trained carpenters. On saying your हाथ pocket में डाल के बात मत करना, पान चू मत करना, those kind of things. So stuff like that we train them on. But that's easier to do. What's tougher is the structuring piece that I spoke.
Just sorry, to follow up to that. So your alliance end up being cartridge still define what can be built.
Yeah. It does. It's actually one of the insights. We don't do too much of customization. That's the secret. But we are in a customization business.
Wait, hello.
Yeah. Right.
Just take a follow-up question. On you said that it was OPPO model or something like that.
OPPO model.
This franchisee overnight company operative, which is you are owning.
We own it.
You run.
They own it.
Okay. So practically they are your local investors.
that particular area or system, right? So, how you convince them to invest in your concept, right? Second is that even if they are investing in your business, right? Does the revenue sharing model would differ in each and every state? Because I'm trying to replicate this model in tech space. So how does the operation?
So initially, it's obviously very difficult to convince them. So the first store that we ran is near, not too far from here. There's this Gopalan Signature Mall here. It's still there, by the way. So we built it. We built it ourselves, and we ran it ourselves for about 1 year. And then that was the first store, but I was very clear that I will never own a store. I mean, in the longer run. So I sold that store. The first store, I probably sold it at like 50% of the cost. But the whole concept started working. Then I said risk and reward with the franchisee. So I didn't give them a fixed revenue share. I gave them a variable revenue share based on how well that store did. Even though they had no hand in running the store, I am running the store, they were going to be basically betting on our ability to sell. So what we envisaged the store to do about 1 crore to 1.5 crore a month started doing about 2 to 2.5 crores a month, on an average. And the investment was approximately about 1.5 crores per store. So managed to convince them initially, like I told you, I had to sell 1 or 2 stores at like maybe 50% loss. But once it started making sense, this is pretty much a herd mentality game. You need to have a strong B2B team which can go and sell this to franchisees. Can do. I don't see. And broadly, it needs to be fair. See, again, we were... the one thing that I don't do today also, there are no 2 rules for 2 stores. It's the same rule. If I'm unfair, I keep telling them, if I'm unfair to everyone. It's not like I'm unfair only to you. That's the only thing I can guarantee. So that's one thing that we have kept. So transparency and trust is one of our, what we call org principles, which is basically, as an org, every Homelaner, we want them to display and kind of exhibit those qualities. The same thing with partners, same thing with vendors, same thing with any ecosystem player. We try to exhibit, obviously. So that's one thing we don't do. So initially it was very tough to answer your question, but as we got along, it became very easy. In fact, it came a time when they started having fights. मेरे को चाहिए, उसको क्यों दे रहे हो, उसको 3 store दे दिया, आप क्यों एक और दे रहे हो, kind of thing.
Okay, 2 last questions.
Since you mentioned many things about culture, as a last time told it, someone says like behind customer beliefs that it sounds like very big to me. Like what are what actually, or like, how do you think about designing or building culture that you can?
So start from what your business is about. Start from what your customer will want to see. Whoever your customer may be. I don't know whether it's B2B, B2C, so I'm just being very vague about it. But let's assume consumer because it's easier for me to. So think about what the customer may want to see. So let's take my business now, for example, right? So Homelane. Now, what is it? It's a complicated last mile delivery business. It's a 100-day journey that the customer takes with us. There's design, there's manufacturing, and there's installation. So it's literally like a relay race. I'm running 100 meters, giving it away, he's running 100 meters, giving it. So basically a lot of teamwork involved. So these are all known facts, right? So for me, the things that came up as to what our people should behave like, became the central points of talk. Initially, this should be exhibited by you. You are the brand. You are the main person exhibiting what the culture of your company should be. Even it's a 5-man company or a 3-man company or even a 50-man company, man-woman company. It needs to be that which is the main cornerstone. And you need to be the one that's driving this. But after that, it becomes a bit difficult. So you need all of these little bit of English, as I call it, to, but it's serious. I'm not trying to make it frivolous, but you need to keep driving this because the more the people, the more difficult it is for you to actually communicate across because the churn is so much. We have 2,200 people. 150 people come in and go out every month on an average. So you do have that many in every 6 months. I'm having like 900 new faces, right? So if you have not done comms properly, you have a problem. So that's when it becomes more and more important. So my business, for me, what became trust and transparency became very important. Why? This industry itself, there's a lack of trust. When you hire a contractor, you think, acha, 100% I'm going to get cheated. How much I'm going to get cheated, I don't know. That's how you go into the transaction. So trust became straight. One. Collaboration became very important. Why? Because you have design, you have manufacturing. So collaboration is automatic, right? Customer centricity, natural. So those are some of the ones which, again, depends on your customer, depends on your business and what you would want to drive. Think about it a little bit and then stick with it. Again, like I'm telling you, just like the idea that I was selling and the insights, even this, what I've felt is, you stick with this, longevity plays a part. Again, I can talk for Rajiv. I know even today, there are hundreds of Urban Ladder guys who talk so much about working at Urban Ladder because the culture that they built was super strong. I know it also. Again, even though I've never probably, worked there or even worked with them so much, but I know because I've interacted with so many of their ex-employees, etc. That is extremely important because, again, I know some of the things that they built. Again, I'm not going to go to that, but again, it depends on the ecosystem that you're building for.
Yeah. So you spoke about e-learning in a Mac. Very hard, right?
Yeah.
One question that we constantly ask is the right time to do whatever you're doing? So, A, what is your answer to that question for e-learning? And B, do you ever feel like you'll be too early or you obviously think it's the right time?
See, I tell you, there will always be a mismatch in timing to some extent. You'll never ever be able to, otherwise you are God, right? So you need to, I think, figure what you're going to do to kick and fight and be alive, or move on and do something else. I mean, again, believe you me, especially in the e-learning days, I had this thought multiple times. Like I told you, right? Monkey in the circus. I mean, really, that just keep coming back and because you're in the same place. You're seeing your cohort do various different things. You kind of feeling claustrophobic. But I still thought that the point that I made, how do I get to that $1 million or $2 million? I thought that had legs, and that I was obsessed with. I said, I am going to do this. I am going to get this to Intel. I'm going to get this to the biggest book publisher, and I'm going to get this to the best FMCG. Actually, wanted Britannia. So I said, I am, and I said, this is a out of the box winning idea, which I know is going to work. Yeah, it took a lot of. What you heard was a very, very short version, but that was the conviction, and that is what. We were not right time at all. Baiju was right time, and whoever else were right time. Because COVID happened. All of it, all the stars aligned. We were not. We were like 15 years early. So what? We still had a decent outcome, by the way. We sold the business for 1,000 crores, which is in 2011, like 14 years ago.
Okay, last question, and then as
to understand, right? Financial like what you're doing in the it to in that for 2 years. Something like that.
Not 2 years. Yeah.
How do you like this is whether it's you keep at it, it takes time, maybe something around that because if you're thinking of some category.
Yeah. So I tell you from Homelane perspective, maybe, if that makes sense. Yeah. So my insight in Homelane was simple. We were in a customization business, but I didn't want to do customization. Even now, right? So basically, I wanted to productize as much as possible in a customization business. So we call it mass customization or some different terms. But finally, basically, I want to draw a boundary. Beyond that, I don't want to customize. Within that boundary, I'm happy to customize. If you want to take it, you take it. My belief, my insight was, if I go to an Indian consumer and I tell him, to give you a very, very crude example, You go to a neighboring mom and pop shop, you will get 1,000 colors of laminate. I will give you 50 colors. Take it or leave it. But with 50 colors, I get more per SKU, so I get more margin. I get less number of suppliers I'm dependent on, so I get less breakdown. Right? I get better NPS. I assume I will get better NPS. Okay? If my margin is more, then I can become profitable. And so on and so forth. Right? Lastly, I will get more predictability of the outcome if my choices are limited. That was my broad theme. Right? Because I did that and I stuck to it, I knew what I had to measure. What all I had to measure? The number of days my competition was taking to deliver a house was approximately 250 days. I was taking 100 days. So that was a tick. My gross margins were about 5% better than my nearest competitor who was doing a similar volume. Why? Because he had 4 choices of white laminate. Sparkling white, bubbly white, TA white, O white, all that. I had one white. Take it or leave it. That's it. So my volume for white was about 3x of his, and so my cost was 20% lower. So my gross margins were automatically better. So that, check. NPS was much better, broadly. So, coming back, so I knew my insight, but I also knew what this insight should drive. So I knew what to track to actually see whether this insight was working or not. But again, I'm shortening this. This took like 1 to 2 years for me to actually figure and drive and actually track and actually convince myself saying, ha, it's working. But that was what I meant by saying, I don't know if I answered your question, but.
Okay. On that note, I think Srikanth will be available as he walks down, and all the pending questions, I always see 15-20 minutes that founders spend right after. It's been 1.5 hours, so I want to make sure that he goes tomorrow is an important day. Best wishes. I think for me, obviously to see him from the sidelines, and I think the story of grit, I think the story, this is a 30-year story, folks. I mean, for all of those who thought that in 3 months you're going to end up somewhere, in 6 months, 12 months, 150, 160 rejections, and so many near-death moments. That's what it takes to get to this point, right? So I think that for me is the biggest learning and a great inspiration, great brand. Best wishes on the IPO and best wishes on tomorrow's launch. Thank you so much, Sridhar.